If you're waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling and wondering why you can't stay asleep, the answer might be hiding in a plant most people walk past every week. That plant is lettuce. And here's the strange part. For centuries, it was common knowledge. Then people simply stopped talking about it. Today, you'll discover why ancient cultures valued this overlooked plant for sleep, what modern science is beginning to understand about it, and 2 other forgotten remedies that reveal a completely different way of thinking about rest. Because ancient people weren't trying to force sleep. They were preparing the body for it. Sleep problems feel incredibly modern. The endless screens, the artificial light, the stress, the constant stimulation. But sleepless nights themselves are not modern. Human beings have struggled with rest for thousands of years. Ancient physicians wrote about restless sleep. Ancient healers observed nervousness, agitation, and exhaustion. The difference wasn't the existence of the problem. The difference was how they understood it. Today, many people think about sleep as a switch. You're awake. Then somehow you need to become asleep. But ancient cultures often viewed sleep as the result of a process. Something that began hours before bedtime. Something influenced by food, environment, rituals, and daily habits. They weren't chasing unconsciousness. They were cultivating readiness. And that's an important distinction. Because when you study the ancient world, especially throughout biblical lands, you notice something interesting. Plants weren't separated from daily life. Food was medicine. Medicine was often food. The same garden that fed a family might also support their health. The same herbs used in meals might also be used for comfort, cleansing, or relaxation. This wasn't lost knowledge. It was interrupted knowledge. The plants still exist. Many of them grow today exactly as they did centuries ago. What changed was the relationship. They didn't remove the remedy. They removed the system around the remedy. And nowhere is that more obvious than with sleep. Because ancient people rarely looked for a single solution. They built conditions that encouraged rest. The plant was only one part of a larger pattern. And that brings us back to lettuce. Because the story of this humble plant reveals something most people have never heard. Most people think of lettuce as little more than a salad ingredient. But historically, certain varieties of lettuce were viewed very differently. Ancient Egyptians cultivated lettuce thousands of years ago. Greek and Roman writers discussed its relaxing qualities. And bitter lettuce varieties were common throughout regions connected to biblical history. What made people interested wasn't the leafy texture. It was the white, milky sap released when the stem was cut. Ancient observers repeatedly associated this substance with calmness and relaxation. Now here's where the story gets interesting. People didn't use lettuce because someone published a study. They used it because generation after generation observed similar results. That's how ancient medicine often worked. Observation came first. Explanation came later. And modern researchers are now examining compounds found in certain lettuce varieties, including lactocin and lactocopacrine, which have been studied for their potential calming properties. Not as a miracle. Not as a sleeping pill, but as compounds that may help explain what people observed centuries ago. What's remarkable is how ordinary this plant was. It wasn't exotic. It wasn't rare. It wasn't expensive. It grew where people lived. And that's often the pattern with forgotten wisdom. The most overlooked remedies are usually hiding in plain sight. They didn't search the world for healing. They paid attention to what was already growing around them. Now here's the part most people miss. Ancient healers weren't trying to force sleep. They were trying to reduce resistance to sleep. That's a completely different goal. Modern culture often asks, how do I make myself sleep? Ancient cultures often asked, what's preventing rest from happening naturally? And that shift in perspective may be more valuable than any individual plant. Because sometimes the greatest obstacle to sleep isn't a lack of solutions. It's an overload of stimulation. The lettuce wasn't the entire answer. It was part of a larger system designed to calm the body. And the next plant reveals even more about that system. But lettuce wasn't the only plant ancient people associated with rest. In fact, there was another herb that became so closely connected with calming the mind that generations of herbalists called it the gladdening herb. And while millions of people today have never heard of it, this plant quietly remained part of traditional healing systems for centuries. Long before sleep became a billion-dollar industry, people throughout Europe and the Mediterranean world were growing a simple, fragrant herb called lemon balm. Its fresh citrus scent made it popular in gardens. Its gentle nature made it a favorite among traditional healers. And for centuries, it became one of the most commonly used herbs for restlessness, nervous tension, and difficulty unwinding at the end of the day. What's fascinating is that lemon balm wasn't valued because it made people instantly sleepy. It was valued because it helped create calm. And ancient healers understood something that modern life often forgets. Many sleep problems begin long before bedtime. They begin with a mind that never slows down, a nervous system that never fully relaxes, a body that remains in a state of constant stimulation. The people who used lemon balm centuries ago may not have understood neurotransmitters or stress hormones, but they observed a pattern. People seemed calmer, more settled, more prepared for rest. Observation came first. Explanation came later. And today, modern researchers have studied lemon balm for its potential effects on relaxation, mood, and sleep quality. Scientists believe certain compounds within the plant may interact with pathways involved in calmness and relaxation. Again, not as a miracle, not as a replacement for medical care, but as another example of modern science exploring something traditional healers observed long ago. And here's the part that matters most. Lemon balm was rarely used as a one-time solution. It was used consistently. A tea in the evening, part of a daily routine, a small habit repeated over time. That pattern shows up again and again throughout ancient health traditions. They didn't wait until they couldn't sleep. They built habits that made sleep easier. Think about how different that mindset is. Today, many people treat sleep as a nighttime problem. Ancient healers often treated it as an all-day process. The evening wasn't separate from the morning. The night wasn't separate from the day. Everything was connected. And lemon balm became valuable because it supported that larger philosophy. Not forcing rest, preparing for it. They weren't trying to shut the body down. They were helping it feel safe enough to rest. And that may be one of the most overlooked lessons hidden inside these ancient traditions. The olive tree is one of the most important plants in biblical history. It provided food, light, oil, medicine, economic stability, and symbolic meaning. Entire communities depended on it. When people think about olives, they usually think about heart health today. But ancient people viewed the olive tree much more broadly. It represented nourishment and resilience. And modern researchers have spent years studying compounds found in olives and olive leaves because of their antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Now here's where sleep enters the conversation. Ancient healers may not have used the word inflammation. They didn't have that scientific language. But they understood that the body functioned better when internal burdens were reduced. They observed patterns. When people were healthier overall, rest often improved. When the body was under strain, rest often suffered. Modern science is increasingly exploring the relationship between inflammation, stress physiology, and sleep quality. Again, this doesn't mean olive leaves are a sleep treatment. That's not the point. The point is the pattern. The olive tree reveals how ancient people thought. They rarely separated one symptom from the rest of the body. Everything was connected. SDFX. And perhaps that's one of the biggest lessons we've forgotten. They weren't managing sleep. They were managing the conditions that made sleep possible. That idea changes the entire conversation. Because if sleep is part of a larger system, then improving sleep often requires supporting the whole person. Ancient people understood this intuitively. Modern science is increasingly exploring it scientifically. Different language, same observation. So let's look at what these 3 remedies reveal. Lettuce showed us the forgotten plant traditions associated with calming the body and preparing for rest. Lemon balm showed us the importance of supporting foundational systems rather than chasing symptoms. And the olive tree revealed how ancient cultures thought about health as an interconnected whole. Different plants, different purposes, but one shared philosophy: consistency over intensity, preparation over reaction, systems over shortcuts. That's the pattern. And it's a pattern that appears again and again throughout ancient history. Not just in biblical lands, but across civilizations. They didn't build health around emergencies. They built health around daily habits. They didn't rely on occasional intervention. They relied on repeated practice. That's the difference between using something occasionally and building a life around it. When people hear the phrase forgotten wisdom, they often imagine hidden secrets buried in ancient texts. But sometimes forgotten wisdom is much simpler than that. Sometimes it's a common plant, a daily ritual, a habit repeated for generations, then gradually abandoned. The story of sleep in the ancient world isn't really about lettuce or lemon balm or olive leaves. It's about a different way of thinking, a way that focused on preparing the body for rest rather than forcing it. And that's why these old traditions remain so fascinating. Not because they replace modern medicine, not because ancient people knew everything, but because they observed patterns that modern science is still working to understand more completely. This wasn't lost knowledge. It was interrupted knowledge. And piece by piece, we're rediscovering it. If you enjoyed this journey into biblical healing traditions and ancient remedies, subscribe and join us. Because in the next video, we're exploring what many ancient healers used for anxiety, long before modern pharmaceuticals existed, and why the real answer may not be the plant itself, but the forgotten system surrounding it. And that story is even more surprising than this one.